You played for Pop. What did you hear there?
I think he understands what Kawhi meant to him, to the organization. I think they've been going through a flux for many years, losing Tim Duncan. Tony Parker's on his way out, now the Kawhi situation. So I think everybody's kind of ready to let's move on. This is our team. These are the individuals that be here. Let's focus on them.
And ultimately, everybody in Canada is still bathing in maple syrup. They are thrilled with this move, Mike.
You keep saying.
Listen, I know that oftentimes in life, just as in sports, there's a difference between being bold and reckless. And maybe Messiah Ujiri has treaded that line a little too far to one side. But if the gamble pays off, people there are thrilled. They know Kawhi's an upgrade, Mike.
We had a good conversation with Jeff Van Gundy yesterday, and he sort of made me look at this a little differently, which is to say, my initial reaction was, if they lose Kawhi after 1 year, it's a disaster for the Raptors. And he looked at it a little bit differently, that if they do lose Kawhi after 1 year, maybe getting out from under the contract that DeRozan has in the long run would have been what they wanted anyway. Does that make any sense to you?
It does make sense from a salary cap standpoint, but when you talk about it, and you mentioned that, they were the #1 seed. They lost to LeBron James and the Cavs the last 3 years, but so did the Boston Celtics. And no one's talking about, the Boston Celtics' future is over and done with. It's just the beginning. And I think they had an opportunity. I think this year, with knowing that LeBron was leaving and that the East was kind of going to be wide open, I think this would have been the year to judge them, right? Not based off of probably one of the top 2 or 3 greatest players of all time and how they played against him. I think that's where it's kind of tough to judge, because understand, too, you have a brand new coach, first-time head coach in Toronto. So there's a lot of change, a lot of flux going on.
It does seem that DeRozan was basically told by the organization, and I read this in a Zach Lowe piece, that we're going to build around you, you're going to be our Kobe, you're not going anywhere, and then the next thing you know, he's in San Antonio.
Here's why it's easy to have sympathy for DeRozan. Damon Stoudemire, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, Antonio Davis. There's a litany of names, guys who were star players and terrific people who did not want to play in Toronto. Yeah. DeRozan had an opportunity to leave and committed to the city. He's from Compton, California. People thought he would go to Los Angeles. Said, no, I'm staying in Toronto. Prime of my career, this is where I want to be. So when you find out you get traded, RJ, that rips a guy's heart out, and that's why that was pure emotion that was flowing from him.
Well, it's really, really tough, too. You look at Blake Griffin last year. They have this whole piece on him, trying to make sure that he stays in L.A. They do a bunch of things. They have a statue. They show a video of them putting his jersey up. Drafted by them, Rookie of the Year, put the Clippers on the map. The very first, chance they get, they trade him, and they trade him to Detroit, a place that he would not have signed with. Right. I understand he's had injuries, and so he opted to not get the trade clause, but he wanted that extra year. But it's still tough. You look at guys that give everything to a franchise, put them on the map, and then the first opportunity that a team feels like, we want to do something different, they're gone.
Look, the simplest phrase sometimes sums it all up. It is a business on every possible side. All right, we'll talk to Jalen again at some point soon. And again, he saw this thing coming months before it did, and he has been spot on as we have gone through this.
He's got to get a workout in right now.
The last couple of weeks, he's jumped on the elliptical again, or whatever it is. So to sort of finish up that thought, however, it can be the classic trade that does benefit both sides, right? I mean, the idea here is you want a trade that works out for both sides. This feels like it has a chance to be a trade that works out for both sides. The Raptors get the best player they've had since Vince Carter at his peak, or since McGrady at his peak. And the Spurs don't get nothing for Kawhi, which felt like it was a real possibility.
Well, I think it gives San Antonio a chance to continue on that path of greatness. They're not having to start over. They're not taking Kuzma. They're not taking assets. They've gotten a high-level all-star player in his prime that plays the same position. So it puts them in a great spot, but then it also gives Toronto options. If he leaves, if he stays, if it's free agency, they give him options. So I think it is a win-win for both teams.
All right.